MOS stands for Military Occupation Specialty, and my MOS, of course, was Scout. And we were told that every MOS had a combat life, and the combat life for a Scout was 13 seconds. Our training exercises were given code names. Two that I wrote down were Operation Hilltop and Operation Flying Texan. Here are some of the guys killing time, playing cards, waiting to move out on one of those operations. Since I was a Jeep driver, the two weapons that I was assigned were an M79 grenade launcher and a standard military .45 caliber pistol. This was probably Operation Flying Texan. We were ordered to take up observation positions and camouflage our Jeeps. If you look close, you'll see the Jeep in these pictures. On one of our battalion-wide operations, I was dropped off at a crossroads to point the deuce and a halfs in the right direction. They were carrying our grunts, or infantry soldiers, and my job was to direct them. The idea was that as soon as the complete convoy passed my location, they would send a Jeep back to pick me up. Well, an hour passed after the convoy had gone by, then 3 hours. Then I realized they had forgotten me. There I was in the middle of nowhere, no food, nothing to do but hope that they would realize they had forgotten me and come back and get me. As it got later and later, the Koreans that were kind of lived in the area kept coming closer and closer to me, especially the little kids. So I would pull out my .45 caliber pistol and cock it just to make some noise to see if I could scare them away. Of course, they knew I didn't have any ammo. Well, just as the sun was starting to set and I was really getting nervous, I saw a Jeep coming down the road. It was a driver and my platoon sergeant. Finally. I couldn't believe how apologetic the platoon sergeant was. You know, the Army never leaves anybody behind, and he couldn't believe how this could have happened. It took me back to where our platoon was camped, and I got a hot meal, even though the mess hall or the mess tent was closed. They made sure I got a hot meal. You know, that was quite an experience and something I never wanted to go through again. When we got back from being out on the field, it was all about cleaning the equipment. And then, of course, more guard duty. Fortunately, we had a houseboy, a Korean who lived in the local village, that we paid to do our laundry. Of course, he systematically stole our underwear a little at a time. Koreans also worked in the mess hall and cleaned the latrine, so we didn't have KP or latrine duty, which left more time for guard duty. Camp Hovey was named in honor of Master Sergeant Howard C. Hovey, who distinguished himself by extraordinary heroism in action on July 6, 1953. Aware of the dangerous proximity of the determined reinforced enemy posed an immediate threat to the defense of the entire post, Sergeant Hovey, arming himself with a carbine and hand grenades, moved from the cover of a trench, spotted the enemy advancing within 50 yards of the post, and charged the enemy, pouring crippling fire and throwing grenades at the assailants, inflicting numerous casualties and checking their advance. Although wounded by automatic weapons during the ensuing action, he continued firing until he was again critically wounded by a napalm grenade. Feeling that the lives of the other members were still endangered, he grabbed another carbine and grenades and again left the bunker area, maintaining his stand and firing his weapon and throwing grenades until he was mortally wounded by a direct hit from another enemy grenade. The infantry companies required an enemy to fight against, and we were chosen to play the part of the aggressors. Now, I have to admit, we all thought that was a lot of fun. We had special helmets we could wear, and I even got to wear camouflage fatigues. Here you can also see one of the Korean soldiers that were part of our platoon. They were called Katusas, Koreans attached to U.S. Army. As aggressors, we even had our own salute. On one of our aggressor details, our lieutenant got the idea to dress Jim Childs up as a Korean farmer, tape his M14 to a shovel, and put him out in a rice paddy to ambush the grunts. We would complete the ambush after he had opened up on them. I think we did that every day for about a week, ambushing different infantry companies each day. It surprised the heck out of them. On one of the coldest days of the winter, we moved out on what was probably Operation Hilltop. This was a huge training exercise for the whole battalion. The object for the infantry companies was to attack a large hill. Now, as evening approached, the troops were close to their objective, and they reached the top just as darkness fell. However, after attacking uphill in full winter gear, their clothes were soaked with sweat. As the bone-chilling cold set in, we heard frantic calls coming over the radio. "Get my men some dry clothes, they're freezing to death." Now, the battalion had 3/4-ton pickup trucks that were probably used to ferry the clothes up to the men. I don't remember our jeeps being involved. They could have been. I just don't remember it. I do remember driving the jeeps in ice-cold winter weather at night with the windshield down and no lights. Then more guard duty. This was called the Chinese Tunnel on Highway 37. From what I understand, the Chinese did not build the tunnel. The Japanese built it in 1930. In another training exercise, our platoon was ambushed by the aggressors as we traveled slowly along a dirt road. The aggressors were firing blanks and throwing smoke. I remember running for a ditch with my steel pot flopped over my eyes so I couldn't see where I was going, and jumping in the ditch, and I had no idea where the shots were coming from. Some of the guys started attacking a small hill. I had no idea how they knew which way to go. Jim Childs ran up the hill, and as he popped up over the edge of the hill, one of the fellows playing aggressor pulled the trigger on an M60 machine gun and shot Jim Childs right in the face with those blank cartridges. He fell backwards and rolled down the hill. Everyone ran toward him. We really thought he was hurt bad. Fortunately, he wound up with nothing more than a black eye. We all found out that day that although we played war games, war is not a game. We got paid once a month in cash. Well, it was MPCs, military payment certificates. I think I made $85 a month. This is a 10-cent MPC, and this is 10 won in Korean money. Payday was a big night up at the EM Club, Enlisted Men's Club. Mixed drinks were 25 cents, so we would buy 4 at a time. And then the next day, guard duty. Summer finally arrived again after the longest winter in history, which had been preceded by the longest summer in history. But now I could honestly say I was a short timer. Well, I've got just a little bit too much more info to add to this video, so there will be a part 4. So once again, if you or anyone you know served in Korea in 1964 or 1965, and especially if they were at Camp Hovey, please please leave a comment below. I would appreciate it, and I will answer any comments left. Also, there are links in the video to parts 1 and 2. I hope you'll join me for part 4 when I talk about preparing to end my tour of duty in Korea and heading home to the good old USA.